Hi, I'm Tanya Muse, a consultant in Heidrick and Struggles Washington, D.C. office and a member of the Social Impact Practice. I also co-lead our association practice. Today, I'm joined by Jay Timmons, the president and CEO of the National Association of Manufacturers and the chairman of the board of the Manufacturing Institute, the NAM's workforce development and education partner. The NAM is the largest manufacturing association in the United States, representing small and large manufacturers from every industrial sector. Also joining me today is my colleague, Jane Bargmann, who is a partner in our Boston office. Jane is the regional managing partner of the industrial practice in the Americas and co-leads the transportation, logistics, and distribution sector. Thank you, Jane and Jay, for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
Jay, as chairman of the board of the Manufacturing Institute, what are some of the workforce development challenges and opportunities that you're seeing in the industrial sector right now? And what are some of the innovative ways you are seeing the industry attract and retain talent?
Yeah, well, it's great to talk to you again, Tanya. These are conversations that we've been having with Heidrick and Struggles, and you all have been helping us try to solve some of these problems. There's some really big numbers that we're concerned about across the manufacturing sector. We've been averaging actually more than 800,000 open manufacturing jobs per month over the past year. And that leads us to a bigger number, more than 4 million jobs that manufacturers will need to fill by the end of the decade. That's according to the research that was conducted by the Manufacturing Institute. More than 2 million, 2.1 million actually, of those jobs are going to go unfilled if we don't change the trajectory that we're on. Now, the good news is that manufacturers are leading when it comes to developing new methods of attracting and upskilling their workforce. And at the Manufacturing Institute and at the NAM, there's our nationwide campaign to change the perception of manufacturing. We call it Creators Wanted. The Institute also leads programs dedicated to growing and diversifying the manufacturing workforce, like Women Make America, which focuses on inspiring more women to pursue and succeed in manufacturing careers. And then there's the Heroes Make America program, which trains veterans and members of the greater military community so that they can transition to rewarding manufacturing careers. We also have in the Institute umbrella the Federation of Advanced Manufacturing Education, or FAME, that was founded by Toyota. It's currently managed by the Institute. And through that program, we provide earn and learn apprenticeships to young people so they can acquire the know-how needed to close the skills gap. You'll find this emphasis on education really across the industry. It's something I'm very, very proud of. Companies are creating apprenticeships, internships, and on-the-job education. Businesses partner with educational institutions to guide more young people to pathways that lead to specialized careers in manufacturing. And our industry also leads when it comes to benefits. That starts with competitive healthcare packages. Approximately 99%, you can't get much better than that, but 99% of NAM members offer healthcare coverage, another statistic that we're very proud of. But across the industry, we're seeing companies that are offering retirement plans, childcare, other incentives, and many manufacturers have been reevaluating workplace flexibility when it comes to hybrid and remote work when that's possible. Obviously, a brave new world post-pandemic. All of this is top of mind for our leading manufacturing executives. Oh, and by the way, we can't fully solve the workforce crisis in this country without immigration reform. So that's part of the solution at the top, and it's also at the top of our advocacy list at the NAM.
Thank you so much, Jay. Jane, would you mind giving us an overview of what you're seeing in the market today?
Sure. Thanks, Tanya. So to put it very succinctly, the market within the industrial sector as it pertains to all things talent is incredibly vibrant and very, very busy. We are seeing significant demand for leadership really across the board, from the board level to critical operating roles, and then to Jay's point, ensuring a great talent pipeline into manufacturing roles. So it's really across the board. Very, very busy. We have not seen any slowdown in demand, both from our clients, large manufacturers in the Fortune 500, but also private equity-backed manufacturing organizations and privately held companies. There's a real need for top talent. And I think to some of the points Jay just alluded to, the post-pandemic world has illuminated how critical growing our manufacturing talent within the Americas is, solving some of those supply chain issues that were brought to light in recent years.
Following up on that, given the board and C-suite executive search work that you do, what's your perspective on the types of leaders needed today and tomorrow's manufacturing environment based on the industry challenges and opportunities that we're talking about today?
Oftentimes people will think about manufacturing talent and go back to the technical acumen required to do these jobs, which is immense. With all that said, the most interesting element of talent is all around leadership and cultural connectivity to the manufacturing workforce. So we are looking, whether it's a board of directors, a CEO, or a sort of a mid-management general manager, those individuals who are open communicators with their workforce, who can create a value proposition that attracts, develops, and retains top talent within the sector. We're competing for talent with tech. We're competing with for talent with other sectors that, may years ago have had a flashier brand. And so it's about really cultivating a value proposition to employees in the market. And I think being open and clear communicators around purpose, around the value of the sector, and creating opportunities. I think Jay alluded to a number of initiatives relative to DE&I, and that's a critical element we're looking to with industrial manufacturing talent today.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Jane. Jay, just sticking with this for a minute, what specific skill sets and capabilities do you think are most important for leaders?
Yeah, well, kind of echoing what Jane said, I think the biggest unifying trait I've seen among successful manufacturing leaders is really vision. They can channel tremendous pragmatism in day-to-day operations, but they also know big picture what they want their company to excel at, what strengths they want to harness, and how they want their companies to grow, and also what purpose drives them. And purpose is so important. And focusing down on more specific capabilities, manufacturing business leaders absolutely need to have an understanding of policy. We're dealing with all of that in Washington and in the States. How policies enacted or contemplated at the federal and state level are going to specifically affect their operations and also those of their suppliers, because as Jane said, we've got to focus on the supply chain. That whole supply chain has to be strong. So that could include, think trade policy, or certainly tax policy, immigration, and regulations that are coming out of agencies like the SEC and the EPA. And perhaps it's my bias from years of working in communications, but I too also believe that modern manufacturing leaders need to know how to effectively tell their company's story. And that requires the ability to leverage traditional and new media, all those channels, to serve as an ambassador for the industry and to be able to really illustrate how manufacturing is serving as such a force for good in the world.
I know that's something that we do in executive search as well. We help our clients just really tell that story, and it's so important about changing the image and perception of manufacturing. So Jay, we know that many CEOs and boards are rethinking their approach to CEO succession planning to ensure that the next leader will have the capabilities to lead effectively in the near future. How do you see your member companies thinking about succession planning?
That's always an issue that you kind of have to force yourself to think about sometimes, but every good leader does that. And, not to state the obvious, but again, the world has really changed since COVID. Boards and CEOs are treating their succession planning with greater urgency. And what I'm hearing is that leaders have to be prepared for the unexpected, for themselves, for their organization. What happens if a high-performing CEO unexpectedly becomes unable to serve out his or her duties because of health reasons? We've seen this happen with some of our members, and it's also clear that companies that have a perceived deep bench of leaders are rewarded with high valuations and confidence from their investors and from customers. So, I think COVID has really accelerated the process of developing that deep bench of leaders and giving them greater exposure to boards of directors and solving organizational threats and opportunities. It's not just CEO succession either, by the way. It's other C-suite positions where our members need a deep bench and plans to go outside the organization if necessary to sometimes get fresh new ideas and diversity.
Jane, what are you hearing? What's your perspective on what boards are looking for?
I think Jay touched on a lot of excellent points. And one thing that I think he did eloquently was to share that succession planning is not just about the external market and thinking about talent that might be able to bring perspectives from the outside to your organization, but actually really looking inward and thinking, who is that next generation of leaders and what do we need to do, whether it's 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, to get these internal prospects potentially ready for a transition to the top chair. So it's an incredibly complex equation that often requires an internal look and an external look, and very planful coordination on both sides. I think we are ultimately very focused on culture and leadership when we're thinking about that next CEO or what that plan B might be if a CEO is required to step out for some reason. And I think to Jay's point, it's a lot about connection with the workforce, and I think someone that can balance both internal and external stakeholder connection.
I think one thing that this pandemic has taught us is that people want to work differently, and being connected to purpose. And really the core of manufacturing touches every person, everything. And that's what's so beautiful about this sector. Jay, how do you see leaders balancing the concerns that are increasing in importance for all stakeholders, including diversity, equity, inclusion, sustainability, climate change, and the hybrid workforce?
So I think manufacturers are approaching all of these in a very practical way, as manufacturers often approach every issue, and especially the hybrid workplace. That is presenting a challenge for manufacturers because obviously folks have to have an in-person front line, but there are tools and techniques that are being used. In fact, we're developing some of those at the Manufacturing Institute for manufacturers to be able to balance that workflow for their employees. They're constantly thinking, leaders of manufacturing operations are constantly thinking about what's right for our employees, what's right for our communities, what's right for our world. Tanya, you mentioned DE&I, for example. Well, manufacturers are integrating DE&I into their culture at every level of their organization. You can see it in recruitment and retention, and through employee resource groups, and in commitments within the communities in which they operate. Whether they use the term DE&I or not, it's part of manufacturing's ethos. Bring your authentic self to work. And I think that makes us stronger. And it's one of the reasons that I think our sector is so strong. Now, the same can be said of sustainability and the fight against climate change. You see that reflected at the C-suite level in vision statements, and that gets implemented all the way to the shop floor, where teams are making products using cleaner, safer methods, and also pioneering products that will allow all of us to live our lives in a more environmentally friendly way. And then back to the hybrid work that we mentioned, I think we're all trying to strike that right balance. And you're right, so much of what happens in manufacturing can't be done remotely. We've learned a great deal in recent years about how to operate with even more stringent health protocols and how to make use of technology like drones and digital twins. Digital twins are digital replicas of the physical product or machine, and cloud computing to ensure that people can be productive and coordinate over great distances. When there's a problem, manufacturers create a solution. It may not be as quickly as some people would like, but I can guarantee you that if there's a problem to solve, manufacturers are going to be front and center getting that done. And so all of those issues that you mentioned, which I don't even see as problems, I see as challenges and opportunities, manufacturers are going to be at the forefront at getting that done.
Jane, one final question, just following up on this. From an executive search and leadership consulting perspective, what is Heidrick and Struggles doing to help manufacturers address these many challenges and opportunities?
Yeah. Well, I think the exciting part of that answer is that the manufacturing sector is truly the unlock as it pertains to some of the world's greatest opportunities today, whether that's climate change or the adoption of advanced technologies like robotics and automation to make things and the world work better. It all comes back to this space. So one thing we're doing within Heidrick and Struggles, both as it pertains to executive search and our consulting capability, is to develop these new skill sets required to lead manufacturing businesses today and in future. And also think about cross-pollination of talent. Tech into manufacturing and vice versa is just one example of where we're helping clients to think broadly around where they can bring in really exciting perspectives to the space. And then working with clients to develop the right leadership and cultural philosophies to, cultivate talent and help to achieve some of these opportunities.
Great, thank you. Well, I just want to thank both of you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing your perspective on what the industrial sector is doing to help everyday Americans continue to just work and thrive and be healthy. Thank you so much.
Well, if I could just add, Tanya, to you and to Jane and to all your associates at Heidrick, thank you for helping us think through these big issues, right? Because manufacturers, obviously a little biased and pretty proud of them, but the best of the best of leaders oftentimes create thinking opportunities with partners, and we appreciate your partnership.
Thank you so much, Jay.